We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed Hey Amud Beis Meseches Sotah. This is Sotah Daf 35b. The Gemara is in the middle of discussing when the Aron was returned from the Plishtim, and so it says the people of Beis Shemesh were killed, and there's a machlokas amoraim. What did they do wrong? One opinion is they didn't stop working while they bowed to the Aron, and now we're in the second opinion where they actually said words which were inappropriate. They said man amorich dimrayis uman osa alach defayis. They said towards the Aron, who angered you that you got so angry that you ended up going into captivity, and who's the one that appeased you that you are now returning. And the Gemara continues, the pasuk says over there, Vayach ba'am shivimish v'chamishim elefish. It says that he killed over there among the people 70 men and 50,000 men. And the Gemara says, Rabbi Yavo and Rabbi Lazar, it's a machlokus between Rabbi Yavo and Rabbi Lazar. Chad amar shivimish hayu. One says it was actually 70 men. V'chol echad v'echad shakol kechamishim elef. And each one of them was the equivalent of 50,000. V'chad amar, and the other opinion says, chamishim elef hayu. There were actually 50,000 that were killed. V'chol echad v'echad shakol keshivim Sanhedrin. And each one was equal to the 70 members of the Sanhedrin. And the Gemara now returns to the story of David HaMelech bringing back the Aron. It says over there, Vayhikit Soadu no say Aron Hashem Shishat Sa'adim. It says when the carriers of the Aron took 6 steps, Vayizbach Shor Umari. So he sacrificed an ox and a fatling. But it's also written Shiva Parim v'Shiva Elim. It says there were seven bulls and 7 rams that were sacrificed. Amar Rapapa Bar Shmuel says, Al Kol Psiyo Psiya, and every single step he took, Shor Umari, it was an ox and a fatling that was sacrificed. Al Kol Sheish v'Sheish Psiyos, and then on every 6 steps, Shiva Parim v'Shiva Elim. It was 7 Parim and 7 Elim, 7 bulls and 7 rams. Amar Le Rav Chisda, or Rav Chisda said to him, Imkain, if that's the case, Milesas Kol Eretz Yisrael Bamas, you're filling the entire Eretz Yisrael with altars, because every single step they're sacrificing animals. El Amar Rav Chisda, rather Rav Chisda says, Al Kol Sheish v'Sheish Psiyos, on every 6 steps, on every 6 paces, Shor and Marie, they sacrificed a Shor and Marie, an ox and a fatling. Al Kol Shisha Sedarim Shal Sheish Psiyos, and then on every 6 sets of those 6 steps, meaning when those 6 steps happen 6 times, so Shiva Parim v'Shiva Elim, they sacrificed 7 bulls and 7 rams. And the Gemara notes Ksiv Kidon or Ksiv Nachon. It says on the one hand, when it talks about the death of Uzzah, it calls it the threshing floor of Kidon, and then it's also written Nachon. And the Gemara explains, Zamar Rabbi Yochanan says, B'tchila Kidon. Originally that area became Kidon. It became like a javelin, it was like a weapon, it caused death. Ulevasof Nachon, but at the end, Nachon means to say it was firm. In the end, it was established. That area became a source of blessing. And Rashi explains, Ksiv Kidon B'divrei Hayamim Ksiv Vayavo ad Goren Kidon Vayishlach Uzzah. In Divrei Hayamim it says they came to the threshing floor of Kidon, and that's when Uzzah sent forth his hand. It was Shmuel Ksiv Goren Nachon. In Sefer Shmuel it says Goren Nachon. And again, as we explained, B'tchila Kashabaha Aron Sham Nasa Lehem Kidon HaHoreg Sharag Uzzah. Originally when the Aron came, it became like a Kidon, again like a javelin, it's like a weapon, it killed Uzzah. But at the end, Le'achar Shenishta Sham Shisha Chadashim, after it stayed there for 6 months, Beveis Oved Edom, in the house of Oved Edom, Nasa Nachon Shehechen Es Beiso, it became established, and it established his household. Again, it became a source of blessing. And the Gemara continues at the 2 dots. This is a continuation of the Tosefta we quoted above. Nimtzis, it comes out. Rashi says, Nimtzis Seifa de Braisa del El. This is the end of the Braisa earlier. Who? Elamishim de Tana Bavi al Davar Zen Nenash Uzzah Ifseke B'chol Hani. Because of the fact that it talks about the punishment of Uzzah, so then we interrupted with all of this above discussion, and now we finish the Braisa, we finish the Tosefta. Nimtzis at Omer, it comes out, Shlosha Mine Avonim Hayu. There were actually 3 sets of stones that were set up. Echad Shehekim Moshe Be'eretz Moav. One of them Moshe set up in Eretz Moav. Shenemar, like it says, Be'ever Hayarden Be'eretz Moav. Hoel Moshe Be'er V'gomer. It says that on the other side of the Yarden in the land of Moav, Moshe began to explain the Torah. And in another place it says, V'chasavta alein es kol divrei HaTorah hazos. Again, talking about the stones that are going to be set up by Harevel. It says you're going to write all of the words of the Torah. V'asya Be'er Be'er. And in both of those places it uses the word Be'er. And so we make a Gezerah Shava, and we understand that Moshe Rabbeinu as well, he wrote down the Torah on these stones in the land of Moav. And then there was one set of stones that Yoshua set up in the Yarden. Shenamar, like it says, Ushtem Esrei Avonim Hekem Yoshua B'soch HaYarden. It says that Yoshua set up in the Yarden these 12 stones. And then there was one set of stones that were set up in Gilgal. Those were the same stones that were built originally at Harevel, and they were brought to Gilgal. Shenamar, like it says in the pasuk, V'Shtem Esrei Ha'avonim Ha'ela Asher Lachu V'gomer. Again, it talks about these 12 stones. And Rashi explains, Shehemid Moshe be'ever hayardin ba'arvos Moav. It says that Moshe set them up on the other side of the Yarden in Arvos Moav. It's noting over here, Rashi's noting that Ever hayardin is used in different ways. V'tana de Braisa ki koi beretz Canaan kari Ever hamizrach Ever hayardin. The idea over here is that the Tan of the Braisa, which is in Eretz Canaan, so that Tan refers to the other side, the eastern side, as Ever hayardin. Now, if you're standing in Arvos Moav, or you're standing in the travelings that happen in the wilderness, so then Eretz Canaan is actually referred to as the other side of the Yarden, Vu Ever HaMaravi, that would be the western side. And Rashi continues, Begilgal, again, there was a set of stones that were set up in Gilgal, La'achar Shebonu Mehen HaMizbeach B'Harevel, again, those are the same stones that were built as a Mizbeach and Harevel, Kiflum Ve'evim LeGilgal, V'Kavim Sham. They brought those stones to Gilgal, and they established them over there. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Ketzad Kosvu Yisrael as Torah. How did Klal Yisrael write down the Torah? Rashi says, Ketzad Kosvu ala Mizbeach b'Harevel. We're talking about the stones of the Mizbeach and Harevel. How did they write those? And the Gemara continues, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, Al Gabi Avonim Kosvu, they wrote it on the stones. Shenamar v'chasavtu al Avonim is called Divrei HaTorah Azos, like it says that you're going to write on these stones all of the Torah. V'yachar kach sadu asan b'sid, and then they put plaster over the writing. So Amar lo Rabbi Shimon, so Rabbi Shimon said to him, to Rabbi Yehuda, L'dvarecha, according to you, Hey chlamdu umos, shaloso hazman Torah, how did the nations of the world learn the Torah if they put plaster over it? Amar lo, he said to him, Bina Yasera Nasan Bem, he gave them an extra level of understanding. Nasan Bem HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave them an extra level of understanding. V'shigru notirin shalahen v'kilfu es hasid. They sent their scribes, they peeled off the plaster, v'siyua, and that way they were able to copy down what was written. V'al davar zed nischatem gzardinim lever shachas, and it was because of this that the decree against them was sealed, shahaya lahen lilmud v'lo lamdu, because they should have learned the Torah, and they did not learn it. And Rashi says, Hey chlamdu umos ha'olam. Again, how did the nations of the world learn? Ha'atikos, the early ones, how did they learn the Torah? Halolo nitztavu l'chosva v'shivim lashon. Wasn't the whole point of writing the Torah in all 70 languages? Ela lavu l'lamda, in order that anyone who could come, l'lamda kolarotzah, so anyone who could come could learn it. Shalo ye pischon pelo sama'umos, so that they shouldn't have an excuse. Lomar, lo hayalanu mehechan l'lamda, we had nowhere to learn it from. And so the Gemara responded, no tirin shalahem, that their scribes came, so from shalahem, ve'im koronosam notirin, the scribes were called notirin, ve'siyua ve'tiku, and they copied it down, kolomar natalua misham al yedei hataka, meaning they took it from there by copying it, and therefore they did have a way to know it, and that's why the decree against them was ultimately sealed, because they didn't learn what they should have learned. And the Braisa continues, Rabbi Shimon Omer, Rabbi Shimon says, Al Gabe Sid Kosvu, was the other way around. They actually wrote the Torah on top of the plaster, the Chosvu and Lamata, and they wrote on the bottom, after they wrote the Torah, they wrote on the bottom of those stones, Laman Asher Lo Yilamdu Eschem Lasos Kechol, that the reason why you have to destroy the nations of Canaan is in order not to learn from their ways. Halamanat, and this teaches you, Shem Hayu Chozrim B'Tshuva, that had they done Teshuvah, Hayu Mekablan Osan, so that would have been accepted. Rashi says, V'chosvu Milmat B'Sotah Daf, meaning at the end, after they wrote the Torah, they wrote, Laman Asher Lo Yilamdu Od Le'el Minei Ksiv Ki Acharim Tacharimam. The pasuk there, the context is about the fact that there's a mitzvah to destroy the nations of Canaan. And Rashi explains the idea of V'dover Zeh Kosvu Lamata. The reason why they wrote this on the bottom, Lodia L'Sheva Umos HaYoshvim Chutz Migvula Yisrael, to tell the nations that were living outside the boundaries of Yisrael, Shalom Nitztavu L'Achrimam, that were not commanded to destroy you. Ela Osun Shebesoch Gevulam Nitztavu L'Achrim, only those that live within the borders, there's a command to destroy them. Kedei Shalo Yilamdu Osanu Ma'aseim HaMekolkalim, that's in order that we don't learn from their bad ways. Avolatem HaYoshvim Chutzala, but you who live outside of the boundaries, Imatem Chozrim B'Tshuva, if you do Teshuvah, Nekabel Eschem will accept you. V'shebetocha in Mekabel. Now those who are in the boundaries, that's not accepted, the Teshuvah. Shemach Mas Yira Osin, because they're only doing it out of fear. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rava Bar Shila, Rava Bar Shila says, My time of Rabbi Shimon, what's the reason of Rabbi Shimon? Rashi explains, My time of Rabbi Shimon, Damar al Gabe Sid Kasvua. Again, Rabbi Shimon is the one that said that the Torah was written on top of the plaster, and the reason is Dechsiv, as it's written in the pasuk, V'hayu Amim Misrafo Sid, and the nations will be like the burnings of plaster, and we understand that to mean al iske sid, meaning on the matters that are related to plaster. Rashi says al iske sid sha Torah nichtava olav. The point over here is al iske sid, the Torah was written on the plaster, v'aisa megula lifneim, and it was revealed before them, v'lo lamdua, and they did not learn it. And the Gemara continues for Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Yehuda, how does he interpret that pasuk? Kisid, what the pasuk is saying is it's comparing the nations to the plaster. Masid ein lo takana el esreifa, just like plaster, there's no way to fix it except through burning. It's created through burning. Af osam hakusim, so too those kusim, those Samaritans, ein lahem takana el esreifa, there's no takana for them except for burning. Rashi says el esreifa, except for burning. Gehenim, that's a reference to Gehenim. Shekol zman she'ein misgairin, that as long as they do not convert, v'heim kruyin amim, and they're still called the other nations, ein chelkam el mistrafos hasid. So their portion is only the portion of the burning plaster. And again, that is all a reference to what we said above, that al davar zen nischatem gzardinim leber shachas, because of the fact, again, that they didn't learn, that they should have learned the Torah and they did not. That's why they had a gezerah against them, leber shachas, to the pit of destruction, which refers to Gehenna. And the Gemara continues, Keman oz lahadetanya, who does the following brisa follow in terms of the machlokas tanoim we just had above between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon? The brisa says, V'shavisa shivyo, it says you're going to capture l'rabos kananim shebechutz la'aretz. What this pasuk is saying is it includes even the kananim that don't live in the borders of Eretz Yisrael. What it means to say is, she'im chozrin b'tshuva, that if they do teshuva mekablan osan, we will accept them. In other words, the decree is only against the kananim within the boundaries of Eretz Canaan, but those outside, they're able to do teshuva. Rashi says, Hachi garsinan v'shavisa shivyo l'rabos kananim shebechutz la'aretz, dekra b'chutz la'aretz ksiv. This pasuk is talking about the wars in chutz la'aretz. It's talking about you go to war from Eretz Yisrael and you go to Chutz La'aretz. This is talking about a voluntary war. It's going to be in your hand to go out to war. You'll take captives. It's to include the Canaanim. The point of the pasuk is to say that the Canaanim who live outside of Eretz Yisrael, they are mutter. Yefas Toar. This is the parsha of the Yefas Toar, when you take the beautiful captive. The point is, they're not included in the pasuk that nobody is allowed to live. Because this Vishavisa is an extra part of the pasuk, and so therefore, again, this brisa seems to be saying that they're able to do teshuva, and we will say on the next Amud that this follows Rabbi Shimon, because again, Rabbi Shimon also said that if they do teshuva, we would accept them. Again, referring to those who live outside of Eretz Yisrael. We will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Lamed Vav Amud Aleph.